open this computer. Hello, welcome to Chattanooga Writers Guild. I'm Mark Anderson, and we are going to interview members of the Rogue Christian Writers Anonymous group, which is a CWG writing group. And maybe let me ask about your group first before I introduce everyone by name. Kelly's the leader of the group there, Kelly Hanwright, I think. And
Yes.
how does your group work? First, where did you get the name Rogue Christian Anonymous?
Well, funny story. So I took the group from Marcia Swearingen, used to run it. It was called Writers for the Christian Market.
Mm-hmm.
And she had some illness in her family that it was like 2 different people that she was trying to take care of. Anyway, she couldn't really do it. And I asked if I could take it because it's kind of a rare thing to find a group of Christians who are serious. I hope this won't be offensive, but it's the truth, serious about the writing craft. Like, it's kind of like Christian film companies. They think more about like getting, I don't know, the salvation message out, but less about the craft. So the craft really matters for if you want people to read it. So I wanted the group to still be available because it was what got me into the guild. And I'd been looking for something like that all my life. But
Okay.
we were talking, actually, Kale contacted me soon after we made the shift and was kind of excited about finding a group like that. So we were all talking one night, me and her and John Mannone, who's a seriously heavily contributing member, but about how we didn't really feel like we were writing for the Christian market. Like, our goal is not to publish, I don't know, devotionals or Christian magazine articles or something, but we were more like trying to promote a Christian worldview, but we are publishing secularly. So the name Writers for the Christian Market didn't really fit. And we were talking about how we don't seem to really fit in with regular Christians that much, which my poem selection will illustrate that I'm going to read later, and probably theirs too. And
Okay.
so that was how we landed on. Kale helped come up with that name.
All right. So then how often do you meet?
We meet once a month, the second Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Usually we meet at the Starbucks in Barnes & Noble at Hamilton Place, where the main open mics take place with KB Valentine.
Okay. And currently, are you meeting virtually like we are now?
Yes, we're having virtual meetings since March on Zoom.
Okay.
And there's a Facebook group called Rogue Christian Writers Anonymous that people can join, and I post all the meetings and all of that.
All right. Well, thanks for telling us the basics of what your group's about. So I will introduce you now according to, this is first Kelly Hanwright. Raise your hand, Kelly. They should know you. First, she is the current secretary of the Writers Guild, and she was board member before that. And she's been a member for a long time. Kelly is a poet, teacher, dog trainer living in the beautiful Smoky Mountains. She creates art to help understand herself and her life. She shares it to help others find strategies to understand themselves and their lives. Her work has appeared in the American Diversity Report, Abyss and Apex, Birmingham Arts Journal, Heart of Flesh Literary Journal. And she has a website, which I will post on a screen at the end of this video, kellyhanwright.com. Donna, raise your hand so we can see who Donna is. Okay. Donna really started writing stories when I was in high school. I was writing what was called fan fiction. Over time, I began to write my own Christian fiction stories with my own original characters. Now I write my own stories full-time. The main reason I want my stories published is to give me an opportunity to lead other people to know God through my work. As long as I keep that in mind as my goal, I don't see anything wrong with this ambition. While I do have my faults, I do my best to do what God expects of me and to treat others with respect. Great. And John Spalding, where's John? John says, I love to write about what it is like to be a follower of Jesus. In doing this, I try to be as authentic as possible. So I'm not really the type that says Christian music is music that you can tap your foot to. Christian art can be upbeat and should reflect the light of Christ, but it also must be true to the fact that this world, our Father in heaven's world, is also sometimes very dark. We do not, as followers of Jesus, walk an easy path. For this reason, my poetry captures both the major and minor keys in life, both happy and sad moments. Part of being a Christian to me is being authentic, like this, to life as it is, to my actual experience of being human. Already. And let's see, I have Michelle Young. Where's Michelle at? Michelle is the former vice president and has been part of this Writers Guild an awful long time. She does, let me get this out, the artwork for our anthologies.
Oh, that's good.
And we will talk about these some more because several of these people are published in our anthologies. She's also a very talented musician and has a great background in music too. So music, art, and writing. Has been published in Poetry Anthology, Blanket Stories by Richard Yoakum and Ruth Zamoita, as well as Festival Writer Issue, Cecina Special Issue, American Diversity Report, and others. She has participated in readings from Blanket Stories at Columbia University, Princeton Public Library, enjoys travel that inspires her writing. Michelle and her husband, Corey, reside in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I got Michelle, Kelly, and I got Donna. Okay, on to Jane Freuler. Freuler. Okay, Jane, we see you right there.
One of the oldest members of this group.
In more ways than
Mannone.
one. The oldest member of the group in more ways than one.
Okay. Well, Jane puts words on paper to enable more clear thinking for herself and for others who read those words. Requests resulted in a series of letters sent for years to multiple people, some of whom were in prison. She writes about her own life or something she has heard, always seeking to remind others of God's involvement. Occasionally, she uses her own stories or poems. Jane lives with her husband of 64 years, 3 dogs, and a tailless cat. And I did not get anything written on Annie or Kale, but Annie, would you like to tell us something about yourself real quick?
Sure. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, but I've lived in the area for 10 years now. I've been writing since I was in 1st grade. I joined the Guild this year, but I've been a part of the Rogue Christian Writers for a year now, actually a year this November. And I don't have anything published yet, but I just got accepted into Seattle Pacific University's Master of Creative Writing program. So I'll be starting that in January, which I'm very excited about. And I live in Hickson with my parents and my 2 cats.
Okay, so you're going for a master's starting in January. Yes. That sounds like a huge challenge. What is your bachelor degree in?
Art, visual art.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kale, what can you share about yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Kale and I hate writing bios. I even like stared at the screen like, what am I gonna write? And then I just didn't. So that's the fun fact about me.
Okay.
When I first joined Rogue Christian Writers, like Kelly was saying, we felt like we didn't fit in. I remember I asked her in advance, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm the right kind of Christian to come to this group because it sounded all official and it wasn't Rogue yet. That was my addition to it. But I was like not sure about it. And they were like, oh no, if you're not sure about it, you're probably even more likely to fit in with us. That was fun. I write poetry and nonfiction and short stories and novels. And so pretty much whatever I write it. I don't have any books published, but I have published poems and short stories and articles. And you can find more about me on my website, which is ksastre.wordpress.com, which we can put later somewhere.
If you'll email me that, then I will make sure that's on a screen at the end.
Okay.
All right. Did we miss anyone? I think that's everyone. And I should, for the sake of this video, I should explain that Chattanooga Writers Guild is, we don't take, it's in our bylaws on the first where it says what our purpose is, that we don't take sides with any social cause. So we're not taking a side for Christianity and in preference to other views as an organization, but we do support the the rights of everyone for their free expression. We're glad to have this Rogue Christian group as part of the Writers Guild, but I think it's important to know that if there was a group from another religion or anything, our membership is made up of lots of different kinds of people, and we want to always preserve that safe space for exchange of views. And so far it's been pretty good. We kind of respectfully, we show a respect for each other's voice. We're able to express our own. I think the Christians in this organization have done very well in expressing their views without forcing or dominating and saying, well, this has to be the dominant view. Follow me? So I think that's enabled us to get along as an organization. So I say that as president, that's kind of one of my roles is to keep the peace. All righty, so that's a good introduction for us all. And let's move on to, I have a question let's move on to writing. Each of you will ask, if you are judging, what is the one or two most important things about writing to you? What do you look for, whether it's in poetry or whatever your preferred form is, fiction, nonfiction? What do you look for that says, oh, I love this writing, this makes it exceptional? And maybe the order we should go in, can we go clockwise? So this is, I'm sure these screens are mirrored image. It makes no sense to.
Tell us and we'll do it.
Kelly, you're first.
Okay. What I look for in writing to see whether it's good writing and I want to read it is it interesting and fun, and can I understand it? Because if it's not even one of those, much less both, I'm going to put it down pretty quick. And that's what I tell my students too. So I'm a teacher, high school teacher.
Yeah. And by the way, you do teaching. Do you teach all the subjects or just English?
English, high school English.
Okay. Well, that should have been in your bio for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So anyway, the important thing to you is that it's entertaining and understandable.
Pretty much.
By entertaining, do you mean kind of broad? Like it could be entertaining or that it's meaningful? Like if it's not a happy thing, but it's meaningful because it's connects with life or something?
I like for it to be presented creatively, where things like, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Kale's novels. If she ever publishes them, I'm going to buy them all and make my English department use them in our classes. It's like just a real perspective shift of like, that's refreshing. Like, hey, I never thought of the world that way before. Interesting like that.
Okay.
Yeah, don't put any pressure on me or anything.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to Annie.
Okay.
What do you look for?
I like anything that makes me laugh out loud, like actually laugh out loud, or cry. I love a good cry. Anything that really, I like writing that surprises me, that makes me see things in a different way and takes me out of my own perspective.
All righty. Michelle.
I like writing that is engaging, that takes me someplace where it's just a real journey and very descriptive language. If I'm reading poetry, I want it to be musical. I want to be able to think about the consonants, the vowels, the sound of everything, how it blends together, evoking emotion and stuff like that. So I just I want it to be engaging, something that brings me in and captures me.
All right. Thank you. Kale.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting question. I'm not really sure what writing engages me the best. I like hearing all kinds of different styles and voices, and I feel like sometimes it's the content, sometimes it's how it's done, but the best writing has good content and is presented well. And sometimes you just have to find it. Like, it's not something that I can really describe and look for it, but I know it when I'm reading it.
John, what do you look for in excellent writing?
Well, I look for inspiration and substance. So, like for inspiring, I think of it as like spirit and truth kind of thing. Inspiring would be spirit. It would be ideal. Yes, expressing the ideal, and perhaps transcending things and stuff in an inspiring, encouraging way. If it matches up with me, if I can connect with it like that, I mean, I'm trying to say, yeah, that's something that I will want to read. And then substance or truth. If it's something substantial, it's got my attention usually, especially if it's also inspiring. But anyway.
Okay. Donna?
Well, for me, the two aspects that I look for in good writing are good moral characters that I can get behind. I'll give an example. Like, they're the kind of characters that work on the right side of the law, but they're not cookie cutter. They're not one-dimensional, but I can get behind their cause. And they're the kind of people that I would look at and go, okay, yeah, I could see myself spending time with this particular character if they were real. And then the other thing is, well, actually there's two in one, actually, because grammar has to play a big part, because you can't tell a good story without knowing the basics of grammar, because otherwise it's going to be cluttered and all over the place. And then the other thing is, you've got to have a good story that your readers can be invested in, because I tried reading a Michael Crichton book called State of Fear, and I got about a little beyond the halfway point, and the story was not engaging me. There were too many subplots. The characters, there were none of them that I could identify with, and I finally just said, you know what? I'm putting this book down. I can't handle it. So,
all right. Thanks.
So, yeah.
Jane, what do you think?
Well, you ask about excellent writing, and it has to have a smooth flow, and it has to make sense. I've picked up books by famous preachers, for example, and everybody's going, "Oh, it's a marvelous book," and it's choppy. It's got good sentences in there, but who knows why he put them in that paragraph. And it has to make sense. One of the best examples that I heard about was science fiction of people that had never been to the Earth. They were out looking, and they were looking for the Earth. And he said something and said, "Pardon my French." Well, he wouldn't know anything about an expression like that if he'd never been to the Earth. So it didn't make sense. So that's what I like. Now I like something that interests me at the moment.
All right.
And that can vary substantially.
Have you been writing a long time? When did you start writing or taking it serious? You said you wrote letters a lot. Background.
Seriously? Oh my. Well, I wrote little things. I keep everything, and I found things I wrote in junior high school, but they weren't big. When I really started writing, probably 50 years ago. In the word, and I just wrote in order to think better, and it worked.
What are you
focused?
What are you going to read now? We'll take time. Each of you are going to read something short, and we'll listen to that. What about if we go reverse the order we just did? Do you have something ready to read, Jane?
I do, and it's just a little story I wrote, and because you wanted it short, this was short, so this is why I picked this. It's called Dancing, a Parable. I went to work with a team that danced in honor of the king. My first partner was a fellow named Mr. Thrill, who was a wonderful dancer, so my job was extremely enjoyable for me. One day, Mr. Thrill didn't show up for work, and I had to dance with a fellow named Mr. Drill. After several days of this, I complained to the supervisor, who said, "Oh, no, we fired Mr. Drill. He should not even be here. But Mr. Thrill only works part-time. When he isn't here, you'll have another partner." I went back to work and was assigned a partner named Mr. Drill, who in my opinion wasn't much better than Mr. Drill. When I grumbled, Mr. Will said to me, "Think about it. You like the wages. Mr. Thrill is not dependable. You never know when he's going to show up. So either dance or quit." It was true. I did like the wages. Day after day, as I danced with Mr. Will, I discovered that he was such a superb dancer, I could quit focusing on my work so much and spend more time watching the king, enjoying dancing for him. I seldom come into work and find Mr. Will waiting for me, but sometimes I think if Mr. Will shaved his mustache and took off his glasses, he would look a lot like Mr. Thrill. Sometimes I wonder. The end.
All right. Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you very much. What inspired that?
I have no idea what inspired that. I just enjoy thinking. I think a lot, and somehow it just came out.
Did you do revisions of it, or is that kind of the way it?
That's pretty much it. I mean, everything needs tweaking, but that's pretty much it.
When you go to the writers group, I guess, do you get feedback and do revisions after that?
Oh, yes, if I agree with them.
Smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, these writing groups, that's kind of a balance. If you're going to get feedback, you have to listen to all the voices. But when you go, I always go after the group I go to, I go home and I do my revisions. And I'm like, you really got to stop and say, You know, my gut tells me I gotta, anyway.
That's true.
Thank you very much, Jane. And I'm sure they're glad having you part of this group.
I like that.
Yeah, sweet. Are you ready, Donna? What do you have to share tonight?
Okay, I've got a short sample from the very beginning of my story, Man's Best Friend or Beast.
Okay,
It's a little over 300 words, but I think I can fit it in.
that'll work. Yeah, samples work good because we can tell them, well, if you really like it, go buy the book.
Okay, here we go. Every culture has its monsters. These hideous beasts that are created by those to frighten children and give them a reason to fear the dark until they become adults and forget about such things upon growing up. We have our own monsters here in America, although not all of them are seen as those of various legends from many years ago. I had often been told not to walk alone at night by my mother, for she often feared that someone would spirit me away if she and my father didn't watch over me and protect me. My dear mother meant well, God rest her soul. She passed away when I was 16. I was the youngest of 4 children. Both of my parents were Christian people and were loved by many in our small town. My father did his best to take care of our family after Mother died, especially since his work to provide for our needs consumed much of his time. For that, I was grateful. With all of the superstitions and stories of monsters that I was told as a child, I was most fascinated by stories of werewolves, the creatures that were half man and half wolf. It was because of this that I had a great love for dogs, even in my childhood. They made for excellent companions and often protected my family from danger. But back on the topic of werewolves, I was fascinated by them, but at the same time, I knew they were not real. They were creatures of myth and legend. Those who spun tales of these horrifying beasts were considered quite mad, and many Christian people didn't associate with them. Thankfully, no one in our town believed in them. Still, dogs, both domesticated and wild, intrigued my fancy, and I often found myself daydreaming on many occasions where I would be running through the forests with the wolves that resided there.
Nice.
So that's where you're going to get it started, huh?
Yeah, that's the very beginning of the story that's narrated in first person by the main character.
It's kind of interesting because that it really is a good Springer there, because all of a sudden that last line is like,
Yeah, the last one.
this story is going to go somewhere.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, like I say, that was the sample from one of the stories I read for the Halloween open mic on October 31st.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, I wrote that after I was inspired by listening to an audio recording of somebody doing Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. So that's where I got the inspiration for that.
Okay. And how far along are you in this book? Is it a book or a short story?
I guess you could say it's more of a short story because it's only like 30 something pages, I guess, but it's finished. I've completed it now. I just need to, if I have to, I'll go back and I'll do some more editing on it. But unfortunately, I forgot to mention this in my bio, I don't have any of my works published at the moment, but I do have something that you guys might find interesting. I'll see if I can put it in the chat here. It's an audio sample of a short story I did called A Christmas Miracle with a friend of mine. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Right. Well, we're not going to be able to pull it up right now anyway. So.
Oh, well, that's okay. I'll go ahead and type it in, but I'll type in the website where you can find it. Narration by George. Wait, hold on. .com/books. All right. So there's the link. It's narration. It's narrationbygeorge.com/books. And if you scroll down to holiday books, you'll find A Christmas Miracle. It was available on CD Baby for purchase, but for some reason it was taken down. So now you can only find the sample. But if you do get a chance to hear it, let me know what you think of it.
Okay, thanks, Donna.
You're welcome.
John, what do you have to read?
You said John, right?
Yeah, John. And on my computer,
Yes.
you're like, we're going in a circle. And did you want to screen share it?
I can do either. I have it ready for either way, actually, Mark.
Well, let's go ahead and give it a shot to do screen share if you want.
Okay. You wish. Let's see here. Just a second. This is my website, and yes is the poem that I want to share. This is a poem about communion and the Lord's Supper, which in the Christian community is always, as far as I know, celebrated with bread and wine, and not always necessarily candles. But anyway, this is the poem that I wrote, and it's based on, or it's inspired by 2 Corinthians 1:20, which is for no matter how many promises God has made, they are yes in Christ. Yes, I love you dearly. Yes, you are my child. Yes, when you are meek and humble. Yes, when you are wild. Yes, you may not tame me. And yes, I am that good. Yes, on the cross you tried to shame me, though yes, I built its wood. Yes, the world would be your oyster, though hating your gracious soul. And yes, I spread my table in your midst in order to make you whole. Yes, my child, I've mixed my wine together, surrounding grief with love. Yes, now let us dine forever, at first down here and then above.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
So all right, there you go. So tell us a little bit about that poem. When did you write that and what inspired it?
It was a few weeks ago, and what inspired it was this Christian kind of book study that I go to called the Dead Theologians Society, led by a pastor here, pastor of Lookout Mountain Presbyterian, Joe Novenson, and we were talking about communion and the Lord's Supper in different traditions of Christianity, and different distinctives, different reasons for doing it, and different meanings for the bread and the wine and stuff. And there was one gentleman who really communicated that each of us is going to have a view of what the Lord's Supper is, but God has the view of it. And so we can, in other words, we can argue about it, or we can just focus on him. And as I was driving up the mountain, Lookout Mountain, I was just inspired by, I just had this idea of yes. And I was thinking of that verse in, I guess it was 2 Corinthians, that all his promises are yes in Christ. And so I sat down when I came home that morning, and because we meet at 6:30 in the morning, and but I don't always go. But I sat down and wrote it and sent it to Joe Novenson, and he liked it, and he read it, or he had me read it the next Wednesday. So that was kind of fun.
All right, thanks. Kale, let's move on to you.
All right. So I'm going to read a short segment from a novel that I wrote, and I've been reading it to this group, so it seemed appropriate that that's what I would read. So I'm just going to read you this little excerpt. So it's talking about this girl named Bailey, and she's in an antique store. A bookshelf towered over her as she descended from the platform, so tall it almost touched the highest part of the store's ceiling. The only things on the bookshelf were Coca-Cola bottles. Bailey wondered why anyone would want an entire shelf full of Coke bottles. They were all the same. But no, they weren't. As she looked closer, Bailey realized each one was slightly different. Most were the old glass kind. Bailey picked one up, feeling the contours of the bottle and tracing the word Coke where it was etched on the glass instead of on a plastic label. On a whim, she held the bottle up to her eye like a telescope. Flashes ran across the glass, things that should not have been in her field of vision. She dropped the bottle and it shattered, sending shards of glass flying across the wooden floor. "Is there a problem?" the man called. Bailey stared at the grass spread on the ground, catching the light of the bare electric light bulbs hanging from the ceiling. "Little girl?" Bailey finally looked up. "I am not a little girl." "Then you won't mind paying for the damages." The man hadn't yet started walking over, and Bailey made no move toward him. "Sure. How much could a little bottle cost anyway?" "That was a 1938 classic. It'll run about $58. Bailey wasn't looking, but she heard his footsteps coming closer. How would he know which bottle she broke? She wondered if this was a joke. $58? She almost expected to hear his laughter in response, hope for it even. "This is an antique store, not a junkyard." The man's croaking voice was close now. Bailey still refused to look at him. "It's just a stupid little bottle." If she had told Aunt Trini about this, she'd think she was irresponsible. That could very well lead to limited freedom. "How do you want me to pay for it?" "I take cash, credit, or time." Bailey finally turned around. The old man was standing right behind her. She scrutinized his weak, wrinkled face. "Time? Unless, of course, you offer an apology." Bailey let out all the breath she had been holding for the past few moments. "An apology. Easy." "I'm sorry," she grumbled. The man shrugged. "Oh well, it was worth a shot. I'll be taking my payment now." "What are you talking about?" Bailey demanded. "I apologized." "You consider that an apology? I've seen gum wrappers more sincere than that." He pulled on his bow tie. "And trust me, I've seen my share of gum wrappers." Bailey stood in front of the man, her arms now crossed. She tilted back her head, then lowered it. "I'm really sorry I broke the bottle," she said, trying her best to sound sincere. "It's too late, kiddo. You did the crime, you do the time. Literally, in this case." Bailey focused her eyes on those troublesome slivers of glass. "Whatever. I have to find my sister before I do time or anything else." "Well, you know what they say about birds and stones." "What?" Bailey raised her head, but the man was gone. "Hey, where'd you go?" The store felt large and empty. Bailey could have sworn her voice sent echoes across the room. "Creepy counterman?" she called weakly. "Cynthia?" There was no answer, not from them or anyone else. Bailey walked down the hallway, lined with comic books and old tin lunchboxes, and sunk into a big yellow chair at the end. Why had she dropped the bottle anyway? She knew it wasn't just carelessness, but she didn't want to believe the other explanation either. What she had seen when she put the glass to her eye couldn't have been real. The world turning to black and white, a large house up a hill in the distance, a street with old cars puttering back and forth between what looked like large metallic orbs rolling along beside them, a man with a sharp chin and a tall hat looking straight back into the glass as if he had been watching her all along.
Wow. Exciting. Let me get back on the gallery view here. Gallery view. There we go. What? You got quite an imagination there, Kale. I think that's what makes it fun.
No, this was nonfiction.
Oh, that is, you got me. Anything you want to tell us about that? What was going on when you wrote that?
So this is part of a novel. I've written it completely and rewritten it a few times. It's called Colors of Andrea, and I'm looking for an agent for it. I want to get it published. So I'm in that phase right now.
All righty. Kelly is coming back. Just all the pictures just moved totally around. So my idea of going a circle just went wild. Let's see. Well, Michelle was next, so we'll keep Michelle there. If you guys could see the screen like I see it. Anyway, Michelle, what do you have to share?
Well, I am going to read a little bit, an excerpt of an excerpt that is going to be going into the anthology. I just recently joined the group, the Crazy Buffet Writers.
Oh,
And I'm really excited about that. I've been friends with Kelly Riley for years, and I've always loved her writing. And I've been writing some fiction, some fantasy, in addition to my poetry. And so I thought that would be a great place to do it. Well, there's an anthology coming up that we're going to try to have out by Christmas. So I started writing a story that will eventually be more of a book that will be from a father's point of view in relation to the original book that you guys have heard me read from, maybe at open mic, or definitely the Rogue Christian Writers have heard me read from this, where we have the protagonist is this guy's daughter. So this is sort of the same story, but from his point of view and from his adventures in this same book here. And it's a dream world that he's living in right now. He's a master dreamer. So this is from his journal. And I'll start here. The flames flickered a soft reflection in Richard's eyes as he raised his head, his gaze drifting out into the darkness. After a moment, he returned to the page. During our meeting, we all agreed that we would continue sailing north. It was too slow and treacherous to walk the coastline. The Queen had many spies and soldiers wandering the land. Also, pirates would be coming inland in the spring months to stock up on supplies, spending their ill-gotten gains on women and wine in the local taverns. We just couldn't take the risk of being found. But the open water was not an easy ride either. Our valiant Captain Gerard and his crew had saved our lives just a day after we boarded in Nearen. My men and I were getting our sea legs. Barbarlow and Midas were discussing folk remedies for seasickness, and I was sitting back, propped against the captain's cabin, staring at the stars and the full moon, thinking about my family. Clip was tethered to the mast, leaning over the railing, loudly losing any nourishment he might have ingested in the past 2 days. The waves swelled, rocked us like a giant invisible hand under the full moon. While in my reverie, I heard what sounded like a woman's scream and turned to see a sailor hanging 5 feet above the deck, wrapped in a tree trunk that was waving smoothly, surrounded by a forest of gyrating trees. When my brain finally processed what I was seeing, I realized that they weren't trees. They were the arms of a giant sea creature. The sailors had reacted immediately, thrusting swords and harpoons, chopping with hatchets and knives, bludgeoning with anything they could find within reach. One hefty sailor was pummeling a tentacle with a cast iron soup cauldron. Another was stabbing at the creature's eye with a sharpened mop handle that was normally sheathed in a thick, dirty mop head. The captain's clean cutlass glinted in the moonlight, but was soon blackened with blood and slime. I scrambled to my feet, drew my knife, and joined in the melee. My blade, though short enough to hide on my person, was extremely sharp, enough to cut through leather, and I ripped and shredded the tentacle closest to me until it came completely off. It was writhing, twisting and flopping, moving itself along the deck. It eventually curled tightly around the base of the helm as if it had found its target. I smelled the stench of rotted fish and became nauseous. I was bathed in it, having been slattered in battle gore. And that's approximately 300 some odd words. So
thanks. That's a good sample.
thank
That's
you.
a taste.
Also
A
nonfiction.
taste of it.
Yeah, exactly, Kale. Also nonfiction.
Wow, that's amazing. Just hearing your descriptions and going from listening to the how they took out their weapons, which was completely completely hilarious to me to when you describe the stench of rotting fish. Just wow, that's an overload of emotions in one go right there.
That's what I like to, like I said, I like to, when I'm writing, I'm actually just documenting everything I see and smell and hear going on.
Wow.
It's like a little movie playing in my head, or
Yeah.
a scene, if you will, playing
Yeah.
in my head.
Really, I think you nailed it there, Michelle, because that's kind of what my goal is anyway, is if I can communicate what I'm seeing. But I
Right.
find in my own writing, often the two don't come out the same. What I thought, what I saw, because other people, when they read it, they say, if I ask them, what do you see? And they say, well, I saw a purple dinosaur. And I say, but I was talking about a purple dog, you know.
Wow.
Well, if you didn't name them both Dino or Dino.
So that is the craft of writing, what separates some of us novice with the people that are more advanced, I guess.
It's just getting used to being descriptive.
Right.
And like I said, placing yourself somewhere and just working on poetry that, I've been working with John Mannone, and I've had the good fortune of being in the poetry group with Helga, and KB and stuff before. And when you learn and work on these descriptives, and even sometimes the verbs, you get different verbs that might not be normally used, but you can adequately use them to portray something, just an image that you're trying to send. It really helps all around. You're writing all the way around. You'll get there, Mark.
There's a big case to be made that the best fiction writers are also great poets or poets, that the two really feed into each other. And there's many examples of that.
I can see that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we need to move on. Who hasn't gone yet? We're down to Annie and Kelly. Should we go Annie next and do Kelly last?
Yes.
I'll give a little background for this. A couple of weeks ago, my mother and I went up north to the Great Smoky Mountains, and during fall break, which we didn't realize it was fall break. And so we were there on literally the busiest week of the park visiting season. And we found out that the Great Smoky Mountains is it is the most visited national park in all of the United States. And we were there on the busiest week. So it was an interesting experience because it was beautiful fall colors, cliff sides and trees and the mountains. But then we were surrounded by tourists and dealing with kind of the frustration of traffic and going up and down. And we had a lovely time, but I was just kind of processing it afterwards. And this is the poem that I came up with. So it's called The Great Smoky Mountains in the Fall. For some sights, there are no words. We stutter out sublime and lovely, only for them to fall lame from our lips. Petty and poor offerings of praise. We sweating, chattering masses haul ourselves around your creation and dare to call ourselves its masters. Deign to afford you simple words of acknowledgement when we feel so inclined. Then there are those moments when we're struck with dumbness, mute in the face of all we are blind to, all we cannot see. At certain viewpoints, we can only gasp out sighs, hums of wonder headed heavenward to give voice to our astonishment. To us, we plodding, bloated, preponderous bipeds, you gave such a world. And there you meet us, at the cleft of the rock, our faces set aflame from the power of a glimpse.
Oh.
Let me get this back on. Gallery view. Thank you. What was that line with the bipeds? Pondering.
Preponderous, bloated bipeds. Preponderous, bloated bipeds.
All right.
Tongue twister.
Sweet. Well, that implements some of that poetic alliteration and assonance and stuff there, that sounds that go through the line.
Yeah.
I love alliteration. I get phrases stuck in my head when they rhyme and when they have the same first syllables. So I use a lot of it in my writing.
And does your poetry, would that be typical of what you write, or do you have a lot of different?
That's fairly typical. I do a lot of reflections on nature and what's around me. I do some rhyming things as well, but that's more rare. But yeah, that's pretty typical.
All righty. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
And moving right along, we're going to get Kelly to read something.
I just want to say that was phenomenal, Annie. And what was that last Flaming Faces line?
Oh gosh.
I really like that last line.
Yeah, that was a perfect wrap on that.
Find it again. Our faces set aflame from the power of a glimpse.
Mm.
Yes.
And that was alluding to Moses, seeing God pass by
yeah.
while he's in the cleft of the rock.
Right.
Powerful piece.
Thank you.
All right.
You're up, Kelly.
Okay. I was participating in several events around National Poetry Month this year because we were all quarantined. So I was like, why not? So this came out of one of those. It's called Easter Storm. Easter morning, I feel it coming, like the rumbling of a tombstone smashing into a skull that symbolized death, and a sun rising like the voices of 10,000 angels chanting, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God Almighty." The whole earth fills with his glory. And something else. What is that thumping? It's the sound of Jesus kicking Satan's ass.
How it ends.
Wow. That is phenomenal. I love that.
That's great.
Yes. Oh. I would love to see that image.
Maybe I can draw it. I don't know. I've been drawing and painting lately.
Oh,
I'll illustrate.
I'll
the-
draw it.
that is phenomenal.
Well, you have so much poetry that I've heard, and you're in our anthology coming up that I'm working on. We have an anthology coming out really soon. Michelle's done the art and I'm editing it. Some of you are in there. So thanks, Kelly, very much. And
Kelly, did you tell them about your book coming up?
No, but well, it's not really. It was about. I do have a book coming out soon, we hope. But since Michelle, it's ironic that you just brought that up because Mark was talking about you doing the covers for the anthology. Michelle is designing my book cover.
Oh, yay!
Focus Years is my book. It's a poetic memoir about growing up with a mentally ill parent.
yeah, I'm sure it's going to be powerful.
Absolutely.
Well,
Let's see. This has gone by quicker than any of us expected. We're losing audience unless we get some gratuitous violence or crazy stuff going on, right? I should just thank you all. And I don't know how to wrap these things up. I think the purpose of these, we want our members to know about your group. And are you open to new? It seems like it's a pretty full group right now, but
We're open. I would love to have tons of people. We have about 8 participants regularly, 8 to 9. Also, we do 2 special events a year, writing events. Around Easter, we do a Just Write It challenge. and there's a prayer involved with that, where we all take turns. It's an email chain, and we write a prayer every day, and then do our poems or pieces or whatever we want. But last year, me and Kale and Michelle sat around and dreamed up a holiday version of that. So we did a Christmas version as well. So we'll be doing that again this year.
All right.
Also,
Nice.
we do have kind of a lot of members, but sometimes not that many show up. So don't be afraid to show up because you're intimidated, because sometimes it's not that many.
Right,
If they
right.
want to learn more about this group, they should go to our website, ChattanoogaWritersGuild.org, and look under writing groups, and they can get the email to contact Kelly and make arrangements to get the Zoom link and attend. And so we want members to know about it, but also we want to highlight all the amazing writers we have in this Writers Club. And hopefully that everyone gets by doing this, people will be impressed with, we get to show off our members a bit, or show honor to all of you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much for letting us come tonight. And
Yes.
we have some great talented writers here and just all throughout the guild. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to be a part of it.
So I don't have a technology person here. I've got to turn off the recording myself. So don't leave. Okay, we're going to end recording. Where did it go? More. Stop recording right there. Okay. Thank you very much.